Hey Lucas, hope you had a good Halloween and week. So it's 6:30 where I am at now. That means the lesson will begin. Before I begin, once again, is my audio okay? Am I coming out clear to you? And can you see the screen?
Yeah, and thank you, and you too.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's begin. So to start off today, we're going to continue with our tone and diction lesson because there was one more assignment that we couldn't accomplish on last Tuesday because of, well, time constraints. We're going to look at a feature author today, and then we're going to get into some vocabulary exercises, and hopefully we can look at Ernest Hemingway today and his iceberg theory. So we left off around here, I believe, last time. I want you to try to write a story with a lighthearted or casual, but a kind of sad tone as well. Remember what you learned about communicating tone and diction from last week? If you need me to pull something up, then if you need me to pull up slides from last week, then you can ask me, or I could do it right now. But otherwise, I'll give you 10 minutes to do it.
Okay.
Hey, it's only been around 6 minutes, but I just want to check up on you. How are you doing?
Good.
All right, great. It's been 10 minutes now. Are you finishing up, Lucas?
Yeah, almost. Maybe can I just have like one more minute?
Sure, yeah. Okay, I got your message. I'll just paste it now. Thank you, Lucas. Right, okay. Thank you again, Lucas. Could you read out your little story for me, please?
Scott woke up early one morning. He had planned a little football session with his friends that day. Unfortunately for him, there was a tapping on the window of his apartment. Scott lived alone and didn't make much money, so he had to live in an empty apartment. The rain had been pouring overnight. This meant that Scott and his friends would not be able to play football today. So instead, they played games online. The next morning, the field wasn't as muddy, but that didn't mean it wasn't muddy. Scott didn't realize how much he appreciated the time he got with his friends. He took everything for granted. Scott needed to appreciate his friends more. When he returned to his sad apartment, Scott laid down on his bed and drifted off to sleep.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Yeah, I like your tone of writing that you employed. Yeah, it's kind of melancholic, which also means like just lightly sad, which is, well, like the goal I wanted you to strive for with this little writing session. Yeah, you did good at conveying a relatable, melancholic, sad tone. It did feel very lighthearted to simplify things. Yeah, very good.
It
So,
says of to sleep. It should say off.
sorry, where? Oh, yeah, off to sleep. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I can tell that that was just a common typo. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm gonna take a look gonna read this over again to see if I can find any error, anything I might want to fix. So immediately, one thing that I notice here, this sounds a little bit repetitive. The next morning, the field wasn't as muddy, but that didn't mean it wasn't muddy. Like, it's not wrong to write that. I'm gonna say that. It's not wrong to write it. It just feels kind of redundant or a little bit stagnant. So we could probably either use like a different type of structure for the sentence, or we could replace it with a completely different word to describe it, or like a different series of words to describe how like, oh, the field isn't really playable because it's, well, muddy. So wasn't as muddy, but so and instead I'm going to replace it with say, I'm gonna try to it was still too slippery and dirty to play. Because words like this, these are just very simple words that still give the idea that, well, the field is definitely still muddy because dirty and slippery are commonly associated with muddy fields. Obviously, you could use a stronger language or more specific language to strengthen the sentence better than I did. But this is just an example of how you can avoid repetition like that. So let's see. Up early one morning day. For him, there was a so when you say a taping, unfortunately for him, there is a taping on the window of his apartment. You're trying to describe that his window is broken, right?
I meant tapping.
Oh, tapping. Okay.
That just I didn't really like think how to spell it.
Okay. So when you write down tapping, you write it down with a second P. So like that would indicate tapping. If you write it with one P, it would be said as taping. English is weird, but yeah, distinctions like these are quite important when you're trying to communicate a particular words. Because if you're saying there's a taping on the window, that could mean there's a piece of tape stuck to the window or like caution tape. Anyway, uh, money. So I'm gonna put a comma here. So I also noticed he said unfortunately for him. I think that's it doesn't really add on to anything that could make his situation unfortunate from what we read in the first sentence. So I'm going to get rid of this personally. I'm gonna get rid of this and instead start off the sentence with this. Or I could write as he woke. Why is it not the same color as I wanted to? Okay. As he got out of bed, there was a tapping on the window of his apartment. You could say that because putting unfortunately for him doesn't really mean much in this context because there's nothing that doesn't it doesn't really ruin his excur it doesn't really ruin the football session that he planned with his friends because you could put unfortunately over here though. When you say the rain had been pouring overnight, this meant that Scott and his friends would not be able to play football today. You could put unfortunately in front of here. I mean, you wouldn't have to in this case, but you could put it down like this. Okay. And I would put a comma over here. His friend. So you're still talking about friends, I believe. So I'm gonna make that plural in order to fit with the same description you gave earlier on. Scott. Well, if it's a personal reflection, like what you're trying to imply here, I want to say Scott realized that he needed to appreciate his friends more. Sleep. Yeah, and that's all I would fix. So overall, good story, good use of tone and diction in order to convey that particular mood I assigned you, that particular tone I assigned you. Uh, just be careful of using redundant language, like saying unfortunately for him when it doesn't really apply to when it doesn't really apply to a previously stated event or instance. And you could probably avoid some repetition by not repeating muddy several times. Other than, but otherwise, you're doing very good with your writing. Great work. Okay, so now that we're done with tone and diction for the time being, I'm going to bring up today's feature author. This is Kwame Alexander. I hope I'm pronouncing his first name right. He's an American writer of poetry and children's fiction. He's also the executive producer, showrunner, and writer of the Emmy Award-winning series The Crossover, which is based on his Newbery Medal-winning novel of the same name. Like many other popular book series, it got promoted on Disney Plus or another streaming service. It was also produced in partnership with the LeBron James's Spring Hill Company and Big C Entertainment. Pretty big stuff. So Kwame's production company, the Big C Entertainment, is dedicated to creating innovative, highly original children and families entertainment. Other current projects in development as of the time of writing include America's Next Great Author, which is a groundbreaking reality television series for writers, as well as an animated series based on another book he wrote targeted for children, Acoustic Rooster. So one of his books, as I mentioned before, is The Crossover. So Lucas, could you read the entire summary of this book, please?
With a bolt of lightning, or do I read from there?
Yeah, that's part of the summary.
With a bolt of lightning on my kicks, the court is sizzling. My sweat is drizzling. Stop all that quivering, 'cause tonight I'm delivering. Raps 12-year-old Josh Bell. Thanks to their dad, he and his twin brother, Jordan, are kings on the court. But Josh has more than basketball in his blood. He's got mad beats too, which help him find his rhythm when it's all on the line. In this fast and furious middle grade novel of family and brotherhood from Quame Alexander, Josh and Jordan must come to grips with growing up on and off the court to realize breaking the rules comes at a terrible price, as their story's heart stopping climax proves a game changer for the entire family.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. Yeah. So yeah, this book is just about a kid and his family and his ambitions as a basketball player. Very interesting book. As you'll see in the next slide that the book is written in quite a unique way. A lot of Alexander's books are written like this, and they typically focus on culture on like cultures or cultural norms or his heritage. It's like African American cultural norms or as you could as you'll see on a later slide, one of his books does entail the story of someone living in the country of was it the country of Kenya? It was one African country. I think it was Kenya. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure if you could read this, but it's a little bit blurry because the book was written in such a unique way, and I wanted to preserve that when putting it on the slides. So, yeah, each column represents a separate quote unquote part of the story. So, I'd like you to read Josh Bell, please, Lucas. All you have to do is start from oh, sorry. You read it from top to bottom, like from here down to here.
Okay. Uh, Josh Bell is my name, but Filthy McNasty is my claim to fame. Folks call me that 'cause my game's acclaimed. So downright dirty, it'll put you to shame. My hair is long, my height's tall. See, I'm the next Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. Remember the greats. My dad likes to gloat. I balled with Magic and the GOAT, but tricks are for kids, I reply. Don't need your pets, my game's so fly. My mom says your dad's old school. You're like an old chevet.
Yeah, Chibet.
You're fresh and new, like a red Corvette. Your game's so sweet. It's
Yeah, that's a hard word to pronounce. It's a crepe Suzette.
crepe Suzette. Each time you play, it's all net. If anyone else called me fresh and sweet, I'd burn mad as a flame. But I know she's only talking about my game. See, when I play ball, I'm on fire. When I shoot, I inspire. The hoops for sale, and I'm the buyer.
Thanks, Lucas. Yeah, very unique way of writing, if you've noticed. A lot of rhyming, one of a rhyming. As you can see later, you'll see a bunch of similes and metaphors. So now I'll read how I got my nickname. I'm not that big on jazz music, but Dad is. One day we were listening to a CD of a musician named Horace Silver, and Dad says, Josh, this cat is the real deal. Listen to that piano fast and free, just like you and JB on the court. It's okay, I guess, Dad. Okay? Did you say okay? Boy, you better recognize greatness when you hear it. Horace Silver is one of the hippest. If you shoot half as good as his jams, Dad, no one says hippest anymore. Well, they ought to, because this cat is so hip. When he sits down, he's still standing, he says. Real funny, Dad. You know what, Josh? What, Dad? I'm dedicating this next song to you. What's the next song? only the best song, the funkiest song on Silver's Paris Blues album. Filthy McNasty. Not a lot of rhyming here, but that's probably because this part of the story is just a plain conversation between father and son. You still notice some different diction being used compared to the other stories that we have come across, which elicits a different type of tone. So now I'd like you to read at first. So from here down to here.
From the at first.
Yeah, starting from at first and then reading all the way to down here.
Okay, at first I didn't like the name because so many kids made fun of me. On the school bus, at lunch, in the bathroom, even mom had jokes. It fits you perfectly, Josh, she had said. You never clean your closet, and that bed of yours is always filled with cookie crumbs and candy wrappers. It's just plain nasty, son. But as I got older and started getting game, the name took on a new meaning. And even though I wasn't into all that jazz, every time I'd score, rebound, or steal a ball, Dad would jump up, smiling and screaming, "That's my boy out there. Keep it funky, filthy." And that made me feel real good about my nickname.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Well done. So now we're gonna read this long, this pretty long chapter. Sorry, give me a second. Okay. So this is titled Conversation. I'm gonna read the first part and then I'm gonna ask you to read the next part. So, conversation. Dad, do you miss playing basketball? I ask. Like jazz misses Dizzy, he says. Huh? Like hip hop misses Tupac. Filthy, he says. Oh, but you're still young. You probably still play, right? My playing days are over, son. My job now is to take care of this family. Don't you get bored sitting around the house all day? You could get a job or something. Filthy, what's all this talk about a job? You don't think your old man knows how to handle his business? Boy, I save my basketball money. This family is fine. Yeah, I miss basketball a lot, and I do have some feelers out there about coaching. But honestly, right now, I'm fine coaching this house and keeping up with you and your brother. Now go get JB so we won't be late to the game and coach benches you. Why don't you ever wear your championship ring? Is this Jeopardy or something? What's with the questions? Yeah, I wear it when I want to floss. Dad smiles. Can I wear it to school once? Can you bounce a ball off a roof? On the roof? Off a tree in the hoop? No. And then I'd like you to read the rest.
Uh, then I guess
Starting. Yeah.
not. Da man. Only da man wears da ring. Oh, come on, Dad. Tell you what, you bring home the trophy this year and we'll see. Thanks, Dad. You know, if you get bored, you could always write a book like Vondi's mom did. She wrote one about spaceships. A book? What would you have me write about? Maybe a book of all of those rules you give me and JB before each of our games. I'm the man by Chuck Bell. Dad laughs. That's lame, Dad, I say. Who are you calling lame? Dad says, headlocking me. Dad, tell me again why they called you dumb man. Filthy, back in the day I was the boss, never lost. I had the sickest double cross and I kissed so many pretty ladies they called me lip gloss. Oh really? Mom says, sneaking up on us like she always seems to do. Yeah, you dumb man, Dad, I laugh. Then throw my gym bag in the trunk.
Great. Thank you, Lucas. So one thing I want to say, you wouldn't have known this, but da man is probably said as da man, like da is in place of the. It's like slang for specific cultures. So da man, and it's informal too. So you'd say it as, I guess you're not da man, not I guess you're not da man. But again, you wouldn't have known that in the first place because it's such a specific type of writing. Anyway, good job. So I was alluding to the interesting use of words in text to set up a particular mood the story brings. So how would you describe the diction from what was read? And can you make any assumptions about the tone or mood or feeling of the story? And I'll give you 5 minutes to write out an answer.
I don't quite remember all of the different dictions. Or do I just say like a feeling like it was like a happy?
Uh, you could say a feeling like, for example, serious or angry or tense. But if you need the types of diction, the slide talking about the types of diction, I can pull that up for you. But otherwise, just follow what I said first, just like the type of mood it gives. But if you do need that slide, I can pull it up for you.
That's okay.
Hey, it's been 5 minutes now. How are you doing, Lucas?
Good, but I was a little bit confused because I didn't really think of it, so I just put like the closest thing I could think of.
Yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. So, all right, thank you, Lucas. So, I'll read it this time. There's a goofy yet serious tone to the story. I think this because there is a lot of slang usage, but the main character is still telling his story and explaining how lucky he is. I agree, Lucas. Yeah, there's a lot of slang, very casual language. The conversations don't seem too like threatening or instigative. They aren't really serious, but they're also serious at the same time. It's like, yeah, the tone is lighthearted but serious at the same time, as you said here. And yeah, with the way the character describes his nickname and his talks with his father about like his days of playing basketball. Yeah, I can get behind the fact that this I could get behind your opinion. Yeah, very good job, Lucas. I think the exact same things as you. Uh, Whoopsie. So now we're gonna look at another story just to contrast some of the feelings. So this book is called The Door of No Return, also written by Quayme Alexander. Lucas, could you read the summary for the book, please? Starting from the first paragraph and finishing off with the second paragraph.
Okay, in his village in Upper Quanta, 11-year-old Kofi loves his family, playing awar with his grandfather and swimming in the river often. He's warned through to never go to the river at night. His brother tells him there are things about the water you do not know. Like what? Kofi asks. The beasts, his brother answers. One fateful night, the unthinkable happens, and in a flash, Kofi's world turns upside down. Kofi soon ends up in a fight for his life, and what happens next will send him on a harrowing journey across land and sea and away from everything he loves.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. Wonderful reading. Yeah, as you could reading this, the story seems a lot more adventurous compared to the crossover. More adventurous, a lot more tense. So, yeah, now we'll take a look at some of the chapters in this story. Well, not chapters, but well, the book is written very similar to the crossover. So you get these little sections that that are comprised of a couple of columns of text. So, Lucas, could you start reading from the storyteller? Start from here, and then you're gonna finish off here. Hold on a second. Uh, Whoops. Okay. Just gonna make sure you can, yeah, you should be able to see everything now.
Sorry, could you repeat that bit? Just read
Yeah,
this,
sure.
right?
Just read the storyteller. So starting from this column, you're gonna read this column and then continue on this column.
Okay. There was even a time, is how my papa's father, Nana Mosi, the village storyteller, begins most of his fireside tales, always starting in the middle of a thought, like we were to know what even came before, always speaking in slow, deliberate spurts about the past, like it lives in him, like it still matters, always repeating some things and pausing at other times with a toothy smile. That raises one eyebrow right before the thing he knows we cannot wait to hear. Though he is nearly 80 now and seldom speaks, when he does, I hang on to all his words, the lulls in between, and I remember the stories like a pigeon remembers its way home.
All right, thank you, Lucas. So I'm gonna read the next part of the story in the dream. I sprint across the clearing, past a leopard teaching her cubs how to count to 10. After I grade them, I dart between the maze of forest trees and discover a pot of boiling plantains by the river. Picture me running over rocks and grass, swept up in the cool breeze, rushing to the water, drying off the back of a. Often, how old was beloved Queen Victoria when she became heir to the throne? Mr. Goodluck Philip, our teacher asks, startling me out of my dream. My cousin, who thinks he is better than me at everything, giggles, then shoots his hand up fast. But Mr. Philip is talking to me, staring at me, daring at me to answer incorrectly. I would like Kofi Ofin to answer the question, please, he says. Donwote, I proudly answer, standing among my classmates, smiling like I just bit into the sweetest mango. Yeah, could you read the rest of this column and the last column, please, Lucas?
Okay. I do not see the lightning almost slice the skin from my palm, but I do feel the scorch of the rod across my hands and in my bones. I even taste its sting in my mouth. Queen's English, please, Mr. Phillips says, as calm as rain, like he did not just attack me with his jagged cane. 18, I say quickly. That is correct. The Queen was 18, he adds, looking at the whole class, when her uncle died of pneumonia, making her the rightful heir. I'm not teaching you to count in English for nothing. Sorry, Mr. Goodluck Philip, I say, looking down at the purplish wilt burning my sable skin and trying not to cry in front of everyone, especially Emma and my cousin, who now looks like he is happily eating my mango.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Yeah, so if you notice, this story takes quite a unique tone, a different tone from the first story, the crossover so far. So, for the sake of time, I don't want you to write anything. I just want you to say what your current thoughts are. So, how would you describe the diction and the tone from what was read? And can you make any assumptions about anything in the story?
So instead of writing it, I just say,
Yeah, for the sake of trying to save some time. Yeah.
this is definitely like a more serious, harsh tone based on just like the or like a rebellious one as well.
Yeah. I agree. I'm glad you're able to recognize these different nuances in tone. Yeah. So like the first story, there's also some seriousness to it, but this story amps that up quite a bit. There's no goofiness. The tone is more focused. You feel the focus and feelings of the kid, the anguish and stress he might be going through. Yeah, I agree. And how did you feel reading it? I'm just curious.
I was just a little, I don't know, it wasn't quite interesting, so I was like a little uninterested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. The first story had a lot more spunk and character into it, probably because the diction that was used alludes to particular cultures in the United States at that time. This one seems very more straightforward. Doesn't really go into detail about the culture so much, like cultural norms, traditions, slang, but it just feels a lot more serious, which can be uninteresting to the glancing eye. But when you get into the story, it could get more interesting. Not saying that you have to do it for any part of this class, but I encourage you to read some of these books so you can get a taste of how the author writes and how you can create two different types of stories with different feelings, depending on how you write it. Right. So again, wonderful job, Lucas. Great answers. I'm glad you're able to distinguish between different types of tone and diction and understanding how feelings and emotions and moods can be created with the specific use of words. Excellent work. So now we're going to do some vocabulary exercises. So these are words from the readings that we did. So the first word is championship, a contest for the position of champion in a sport, often involving a series of games or matches. Next is seldom, an adjective. describing something that rarely occurs or something that is infrequent or rare. And finally, jagged, an adjective that describes something that appears rough or an adjective that describes something that has sharp points sticking out of it. So, for example, an a stick with uneven surfaces or a stick with a bunch of triangular pieces on it is considered jagged. So, I want you to take these three words and write a short story about a random topic of your choice of at least 6 sentences. So, do you have any questions or concerns before I let you start writing?
No.
Okay, I'll give you 8 minutes then. It- Okay, it's been 8 minutes now. How are you doing, Lucas?
Good.
All right, great. Okay, thank you. I'll post this. Ugh. Okay, looks great. So, could you read out your 6 sentences, please?
Orban was a young man who played football for a small team in Hungary. They won in seldom and had no hopes of winning any trophies. They came closest during a championship where they got into the round of 16. Orban always had the worst luck with his team. One game, a jagged branch got onto the field and scraped his leg up.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Yeah, good story. Used seldom correctly, and so over here I'd put a comma, but otherwise, it seems like you used all the words correctly. That's good. Over here, I'm going to add something. Should say the team won in Seldom or they won in Seldom. I'm not sure if you just forgot to put team on or if you meant to write down they won in Seldom. And over here, I'll just slap a comma in there. Actually, maybe I don't think a comma is necessary for here. You can add one if you want, but you don't really need a comma here. So this is actually fine. 16. Let's look what this naked branch got onto the field and scraped his leg up, and that's where the story ends. So, in my opinion, this doesn't seem like a satisfying conclusion to the story. Satisfying meaning the story still feels incomplete. So, I'm going to add an extra sentence. So, what do you think of this? The last sentence, I'm adding one more sentence and I'm going to explain how that jagged branch uh caused his team to lose. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So, this is just to make this story feel more complete, wrap it up in a more elegant way. So, because of this, need to sit out for the rest of the game, leading to them to lose miserably. Something like that, for example. Now, what you wrote here is not wrong. I would just add something that concludes the whole story and relates to the fact that the team wins quite rarely, and also alluding to the idea that Orban's bad luck caused the team to lose pretty badly, making their winning quite rare. But aside from this, good job. Just remember to conclude your stories properly. All right, we're going to do another vocabulary exercise. This time, I want you to use these two verbs. Quash means to reject or void, especially by legal procedure. And ridicule means to subject someone or something to contemptuous and dismissive language or behavior. So, like if you're making fun of someone, for example. So, I want you to write a mock script for an advertisement using these words, and I'll give you 8 minutes. Do you have any questions or concerns about the words that were presented?
No.
Okay, you can
Wait, a
get
mock
started.
script? So, could you explain again what that was?
So, mock script for an advertisement. I probably didn't have to write mock here because I wanted to say pretend you're writing a script for an advertisement for a product of your choice. Just make something up and write a script for an advertisement for it, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I accidentally closed the chat when I was trying to bold one of the words.
Ah, okay, that's fine. How much more time do you think you'll need?
Maybe 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes is fine. And if it's less stress on you, you don't have to bold the words that I want you to use because I'll identify them when you're reading it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I see your post. Ooh, give me a second. All right. Thank you so much, Lucas. Okay, could you read out your script to me, please?
Do your kids hate the toys you buy them? Do they lose attention in less than 2 minutes? Well, fear not, because this toy, known as Yor, will never be ridiculed as it is perfect in every imaginable way. Does it have multiple features? Yes. Is it safe for the kids? Yes. Will the dog be able to rip through it? No. The Yor is as durable as steel, but it is more safe to your kids than an ant is to an anteater. So if you quash Yor, we've all got one question for you. What are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you, Lucas. I like the personality you put in this script. Very nice. It gives off a very interesting tone that drives people to the products. Okay, so you used ridicule well, you used quash well too. The definition does state that quash means reject or void, especially by legal procedure, but I've seen instances where quash is just used simply to mean reject or void. So if you reject your, that's still a good use of quash from my understanding. So yeah, great work. And just gonna glance at this one more time to see if there's anything I'd like to edit or fix. So it it could be kind of redundant here, so I'm gonna cross that out. The Yor is as durable as steel, but is more safe for your kids. I'm gonna write down for your kids than an ant is to an anteater. Interesting comparison. Yeah. Got one question for you. What are you doing? Okay. So you're saying that the ant is pretty safe for an anteater here, right? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah. Great work, Lucas. Very nice. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way. So there's only a couple minutes left, so let's just take a small dive into Ernest Hemingway, an author very infamous for his short stories. So one of his quotes was, the dignity of movement of an iceberg is due to only 1/8 of it being above water." Very interesting quote. So I'll read this out. Hemingway's writing style was short and straightforward. On the surface, one will be able to understand the events of a story with a rather low reading level. In other words, the significance of Hemingway's writing does not lie on the surface level of the prose or writing style. Hemingway's writing does not include many adverbs or flowery language used to expand on his main point. Rather, he states the main point, allowing connections within the text be made by the readers on their own or not. One can read Hemingway's stories for what they are on the surface, but almost always a reader lives vicariously through their characters, and as a result, one applies emotions to Hemingway's writing and makes their own connections in an accessible way. Yeah, he's very infamous for writing stories that meet these specific criteria. Stuff like the White Elephant story, A Canary for One. Yeah, he was very infamous. Some people attribute, if you didn't know about this, the 6 word story about baby product sales, which is a story in 6 words. But he didn't actually write that. I might talk about it a little bit more later when we get into the main point of talking about Hemingway. So I'm going to present this quote again. The dignity of movement of an iceberg is due to only 1/8 of it being above water. So what do you think Hemingway means with this quote? I'll give you it says 5 minutes, but I don't think it should take any longer than 3 or 4 minutes to write an answer out. So I just want you to write out what you think Hemingway means with this quote. Just got it. Hey, so thank you, Lucas. So you write that you think Hemingway means that you should never judge a book by its cover. You shouldn't assume based on appearances. Mm, kind of. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's sort of a half truth to the answer you gave. Like, you don't just judge a book by its cover. Don't take everything at face value. Don't just assume based off, just assume things literally based off of what is written. And maybe you should look deeper. Yeah, that type of thinking I can understand. This is sort of half true in my opinion. What I think means is that kind of similar to this, except I also want to add like what's written doesn't necessarily represent everything that's being told. And we'll get to this when we start talking about iceberg theory, which is a theory that was coined based off of Hemingway's writing style. So, Lucas, could you read the all three paragraphs of the iceberg theory, please? It's very interesting.
The iceberg theory, also known as the theory of omniscience, is a writing technique coined by American art author Ernest Hemingway. As the name suggests, it is based on the concept of an iceberg, where only a small part, only 1/8, is visible to the naked eye, and the rest is hidden beneath the surface. In terms of creative writing, Hemingway's iceberg theory suggests that the writer should include in the story only a small portion of what he or she knows, leaving out 7/8 of the content underwater or out of sight. The elements that are left out, although not directly written about, should be known to the writer and subtly affect the story's events, characters, and flow. The idea is to strengthen the narrative by providing enough information to engage the readers without spelling everything out. This allows readers to read between the lines and interpret what the underlying themes, emotions, and meanings. It's a way to add depth or feeling and subtlety to your writing, making it more thought provoking.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, the taskbar is blocking out that last part, but you read everything great. Thank you. Just be sure you do pronounce words written correctly, because you said depths or feeling when it says depth of feeling. Just an example. So yeah, anyway, the iceberg theory. Yeah. So what you wrote as an answer back there was kind of half spot on. Just don't judge everything by its cover. But like it's imploring you to look deep, to understand deeper understand deeper with what exactly is written. It's like as he says, only 1/8 is vis of the iceberg is visible to the naked eye. We could represent that with words and their meanings. So the words that are presented to us are like that visible part of the iceberg. The 7/8 of the iceberg that are underwater, those represent the deeper meaning behind the words. So we can, with proper reading comprehension and understanding of the story's elements, we can look at some of Hemingway's stories and then understand what exactly he's trying to communicate about characters, settings, etc., with the words he carefully chooses. And they aren't very complex words, too. They could be very simple words that still convey a similar meaning. And then we can infer possible themes or motifs of a story based off of those. So, how do you employ this iceberg theory in writing? So, there's a couple of points I want to bring up regarding that. So, first is the visible and the invisible. In the world of storytelling, the iceberg theory operates much like a literal iceberg. What's immediately visible to us is only the tip, about 10%, and represents the overt details of the story, explicit actions, dialogues, and events, similar to a similar description to what I stated back on the previous slide. Beneath that part is a whopping 90% we don't see. This hidden treasure is brimming with emotions, backstories, and all the juicy bits that give a story depth, life, and zest, even if they're just hinted at. So these very simple words, the simple actions and events that occur, Hemingway uses these in order to illustrate possible ideas of a character's backstory, a character's feelings, like the state of certain things, all without making it overtly obvious. And the power of omission. Lucas, could you read the description for the power of omission?
The power of omission. The iceberg theory thrives on strategic omissions. Hemingway wrote that rather than spelling out every detail, writers can embrace this approach deliberately, omit things, and leave out specific elements. But these aren't random exclusions. Each omission is a calculated move designed to kindle curiosity and deepen engagement. It encourages readers to participate actively, inferring details and filling in gaps with their imaginations, feelings, and interpretations.
Right. Thank you, Lucas. So what he's saying here is that you can leave things out of the story if you're writing like Hemingway or employing the iceberg theory, or you'll notice some details that might be left out, but they aren't random. They have a purpose to them. So with these omissions, it encourages the reader and the writer who's omitting them to think, why was this thing particularly left out? What can we make of this detail that was left out? What can we fill it in with? That's the magic of the style of writing with the iceberg theory. You could fill it with any sort of idea you'd like as long as it makes sense to you or fits with the story. Subtext is king. Between the clear-cut dialogues and events, there's a wonderful layer called subtext. We can imagine subtext as the heartbeat of a story, which pulses quietly beneath everything, much like the heart in the human body. Unsaid feelings, secret motives, etc., can make even a simple hello charged with meaning. It's a silent dance between the writer of prose and you, the reader. Yeah, so things are hidden behind words. It could be hidden behind actions, it could be hidden behind motif. Many motifs could be hidden behind the dialogue characters say, their actions, what they do, so on and so forth. Okay, so it's 8 o'clock now. An hour and a half has passed for today's section. So we'll continue the iceberg theory on our next session on Thursday. But before I leave, I'd like to ask, is there anything in your current school curriculum so far that you'd like me to review with you? Like anything that you're having trouble understanding?
Uh, not in English.
Ah, okay, wonderful. So if you do have anything you'd like to discuss with me, you could bring it up. If you're having like trouble understanding something in English, you can always bring it up to me at the end of class if I ask, then I could dedicate one part of a lesson to helping you understand that better. But otherwise, yeah, that's great that you understand everything. That's wonderful. So, yeah, it's 8:01 where I'm at now. Hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and I'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Have a great evening, rest of your day.
You too.